Thank you so much for joining again. Uh, Today, most of you probably know that this is a day of fasting. So one of the requirements by Rabbi Abraham is to for doing the presentation, the practices is actually to fast. And today, I am also fasting. So if I am mixing up some things, or I am just a little bit having suspense, please forgive, but I will really try to be focused. Actually, fast has double effect. It can sharpen the mind, or it can also exhaust. In my case, at this stage is usually sharpening, but you are most welcome to correct me if I am, as I said, having an effect of not drinking and eating for some time already. So, welcome everyone. We have also um, mm, we have also few people more registered. Anyone who is not present, like it was last time, will have recording and also the presentation. As you can see, I am always attaching. I am also sending some additional materials and proposing the bibliography. Today we are starting the second, the most important, I would say, the core of Abulafian teaching. The second presentation is about mystical path. As I said, as I propose the outline of our sessions of meetings, they are fluid, I would say. So if this one, I think this one will probably not will not exhaust two main techniques, two main practices that I would like to speak about. Therefore, I might put on the third one in 2 weeks. Next week is Yom Kippur, but in 2 weeks we can also extend more material and just combine with other topics. As I said also in the first presentation, each and every aspect of Abulafia, each and every aspect, theory, his thoughts, his aim, his ideology, and also the minute practices that are supposed to help attaining the ecstatical experience or prophetic experience, as he defined that, they are just all connected. So we have a little bit trips, journeys, digressions here and there to different places all the time. And as mentioned, and I would like to stress it again and again, the digressive way of presenting is very typical Jewish, very typical Talmudic, I would say, very typical the spiral movement of explaining things is natural to the Jewish thought. It's not linear. It's not Immanuel Kant. It's not Western philosophy. So um, having said that, I always stress that I want to also keep myself at bay with some digressions, not to lose the narrative. So uh, let's start. I think the first thing we have to do, what is addition to the last presentation, is to have a review of Abulafia works, because we spoke about the person, about his peregrinations here and there, the different adventures. They are just not adventures as such if we don't not clarified as such if we don't have the overview what actually Abulafia wrote, because he wrote a lot, and what is our focus today, and also to have a general overview how the topics we will talk about today are part of the general literature, the general output by Abulafia. So one might say that there are more categories of Abulafia works, but I think that the main is can be the main corpus can be divided into 7 categories. And first of all, it's commentaries of Sefer Yetzirah. We'll speak about it further today a bit. The Book of Formation. I will not speak a lot about Sefer Yetzirah. I will just focus on what is the important thing for the Abulafian technique. I think we might have another session about that, but maybe in separate course, just to delve into Sefer Yetzirah. Abulafia used Sefer Yetzirah very technically, and in his commentaries, he speaks about more about other aspects of this book, but the main thing is the practice for him. And today we'll focus also on this aspect of this book. Commentaries of Rambam's of Maimonides Moreh Nevuchim, Guide of the Perplexed, we'll be talking about it more in the theoretical sessions about how actually Abulafia explained what is the prophecy according to him, and how he reads the prophecy through the philosophy explained in some aspects in Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide of the Perplexed. As said earlier, during last session, Abulafia perceived Maimonides as a Kabbalist. It's a very interesting thing about this perception, because there are some Kabbalists that perceived Maimonides as a Kabbalist, but if you would ask Maimonides, if Rambam, if he was a Kabbalist, he would definitely say he wasn't. But that's sometimes what happens when we apply this idea of reading the text independent from the intention of the author, what Umberto Eco called, the open text theory, which means that it's incredible to combine maybe a little bit Rambam's, Maimonides' ideas, philosophical ideas, exposure, how to read and perceive the Torah through the Aristotelian philosophy. And then in Abulafia's this amalgamate of his own combinations, how to combine it with very proto-Kabbalistic book, which is this Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Formation, to end up in propagation of his techniques and teachings. But that's another story. Abulafia also had some commentaries on Torah. They are pretty late texts. And again, they are also commentaries, again, through the lenses of the whole ideology of Abulafia, that is, that whole Torah speaks about how to attain the prophecy, and this is important to stress it, and so on and so forth. So Abulafia is very good in order to just put Abulafia's ideas into one sentence. It can be really said that this is very monothematic. It's about attaining the prophetic state, attaining the ecstatic state, and combine and connect with the highest realms and highest possible consciousness with Hashem, with God. But most commonly, it's also used the term of active intellect and angel Metatron. Again, I'm jumping a little bit ahead. We'll speak about it later. Today, very technical meeting. And I highlighted here handbooks of techniques to attain an ecstatic prophetic experience. This is the core of the of our meeting today. And Abulafia's texts are available in many manuscripts, but handbooks of these techniques are in most of the manuscripts. There are about 100 and something manuscripts of one teachings from book Chaye Haolam Haba, the life of the future world, the world to come, as it's also translated, which is one technique that we will definitely speak about in depth today. And also a lot of copies of Or HaSechel, the light of the intellect, the light of the mind, which is another technique. One important thing at this stage about the handbooks, Abulafia performs no he has no magical tendencies in his worldview and in his practice. What does it mean? It means that he's not attached to one method. It's not that he believes that only through one method, and this method is the only one true, one can attain this desired state of prophesying, of being in ecstasy union with Hashem, with God, or angel Metatron. No, he speaks that there are many ways, and they are also divided in stages. We'll speak about it further. So it means that he is actually very much aware that there are plurality of methods, plurality of ways. Nevertheless, he wants to give some algorithm how to act in order to pursue this desired effect. So this is a very important remark. I believe this is also stressed by Professor Idel or Moshe Idel many times, that although few in many aspects details from Sefer Yetzirah and some future um, later than Abulafia receptions, they had tendency to be used in the magical, um, let's say, magical way to operate. It was not Abulafia's intention, and he actually many times also scolded the usage of Kabbalah Ma'asit, Kabbalah, a practical Kabbalah, for the purpose of attaining some lower goals. So he was very much against that. And the goal that is important is to um, achieve the unio mystica, so to speak, with God. There are also, moving forward, prophetic books and commentaries on prophetic books. Prophetic books, we will speak about it in the last but one session, which is actually one book extant to our times. We have fragments from the others, and and here and there a little bit excerpts. But in commentaries on his own books, he speaks a bit also about the content which is there. However, Sefer Haod, which I have in mind when I speak about prophetic books, is indeed such a deep and complex, although very short, relatively short text, that it will, in my opinion, is sufficient to just present what is the outcome and what is the self-reference that is there, to own experiences allegedly experienced by Abulafia. He also wrote some poems. So there are some poems that are ascribed to him. We are not sure if they are written by him or not, but some of them are here and there placed in different books in different places. In Sefer Haud itself, there are some sort of poetic uh, works. I don't like this statement. This is in scholarship. It's being said that he wrote poems. I also believe that they are just some sort of semi-prophetic stanzas, and they also should be interpreted through the methodology of Abulafia, which is read it through different layers, different hermeneutical methods, and so on and so forth. But again, let's focus today on the handbooks of techniques. And let's speak about just a little bit on those books. For example, commentaries on Sefer Yetzirah. There are books like Otzar Eden Aganus, quite extensive. And also here already we have some hinted um, remarks about why for Abulafia Sefer Yetzirah is a book about practice. It's not so much about cosmology, which is also somewhere there in the background. He also speaks about visions and the general meaning, the historiographical meaning that stems from Sefer Yetzirah, and how he also perceived it in his own life, how he applied it to understand his contemporary times. But again and again, in each of these, on Otzar Eden Agunus, which means, which translates to the treasure of the hidden treasure of Eden, he is focusing on a practice. The same in Gan Na'ul, which is a quote from book Songs of the Songs, Shira Hashirim, which means Gan Na'ul, the closed, the sealed garden. Gan Na'ul, Achotikala, Gan Na'ul, Mayan Khatum. This is the fragment from some songs. Gan Na'ul, you are the sealed garden. Achotikala, my sister, my bride. Gan Na'ul, Mayan Khatum. Gan Na'ul, the sealed garden, the closed source. This is the fragment from the Torah. Again, Abulafia is not very original in his in the titles of his books. They are mostly like in all Jewish literature, or most of the Jewish literature. There are quotes, there are fragments, and there are excerpts from the from Torah, from Tanakh, from the Bible. So Usually, this is how in Kabbalistic, but not only in Kabbalistic Jewish literature, the titles of the books are presented, are also chosen. The same is here regarding the mentioned Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim commentaries, Sefer HaGeulah, the Book of Redemption, so to speak, very small booklet. Sefer Hayech HaNefesh, the Book of the Life of the Soul, and the biggest one, Sitrei Torah, the secrets of the Torah. By the way, this is also a pun because Rambam wrote his own book, Mishneh Torah, which is like the second Torah or repetition of the Torah or teaching of the Torah. And Abulafia had this, I would say, self-confidence to write a commentary on something that is not Mishneh Torah by Rambam, but then again, it's just a pun. When we understand that he's giving a title of Sitra Torah is a pun immediately to Mishneh Torah. So he was very confident that this is some sort of revolution that he wants to give to show that Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim is actually much more important than Mishneh Torah, which is like halachic book. It's a compendium of explanation of the halakha, of the Jewish law by Maimonides, and Sitra Torah is the secrets of the Torah, which is much more important for Abulafia himself. As you can see, those books, also, I'm going back to the previous slide, it's pretty late. It's 6 years before he probably passed away. It's already after the encounter, attempted encounter with the Pope, and Abulafia is somewhere in Sicily when he's writing this text, and Sitra Torah is around the time of still in Sefer HaGeulah of still attempting to meet the Pope, attempting to be this political messiah, as we can judge. Some of the dates we know because they are written, they are hinted at in the book themselves. Some of them we can assess more or less when they were written, but these are earlier, and this also shows some sort of evolution in Abulafia's way. That first he published more or less the books related to his ideology. There is a booklet, Get Hashemot, I didn't mention, that is actually a very introductory idea about usage of the names to attain the ecstasy and prophecy, but full-fledged texts about techniques are later. And for example, I'm moving forward to our core topic today. Hayeh Ha'olam Haba is written more or less again the time of the climax. It's 12 years before his departure from this world. He's writing those books, all of them, to his pupils, to his students, to his co-operators on those techniques. So it's just probably at some point he understood that it's better that it's written down, that it's not only in an oral exposure, but it's written down and copies are also being sent. So majority of the most important text is the last 12 years, I would say, of his life. And the last one we can see Imre Shefer, the words of beauty. It's also a quote from Bereshit, from the vision of Yaakov. And this vision of Yaakov about his Yaakov, the forefather, about his 12 tribes, is also very much inspirational to Abulafia himself. And it was the last book actually that was written. We know also the date. We know also that there is mentioned that he's in Palermo, so he most probably left Comino, as we remember from the last session. Again, I put here, as I said, Otzar Eden Naganuz, because although it's also categorized as a commentary to Sefer Yetzirah, it contains, as I said, description of preparatory techniques too. And I highlight here Hayeh Ha'olam Haba in red because I want to speak more on that. I just decided that it's just a little bit too much. Either we just go a little bit superficial, and also we are not discussing some value-added, in-depth interpretations and thoughts about either of those techniques. And then we have this kind of, so to speak, half product, or we focus today on one and we speak further and deeper, and we also have this different understanding of one of those technique of the name 72. What is the name 72? Most probably you know, but I will just also expose it later during the slides, and also have some thoughts about it of myself, why and how. And or Hasekel, I think we can just move to the next session, and I will just put some attention also there. This is the technique that is usage the name. I write it here out of respect, Yud Ke Vav Ke, but of course we are talking about tetragram. But the name 72 is something that we will speak more today. Additionally, I also mentioned here Sefer HaCheshek, and again, because of the specifics, what is the most important in Sefer HaCheshek, the book of desire, is something that is related a little bit more to this vision of self that is speaking as if in a mirror vision to oneself, called hautoscopy. So I just want to combine those things in specific sessions. I hope this will be lucid eventually. So I think this is also valid to speak a little bit of some terminology and also explain some things. Because usually we use those terms about Abulafia's Abulafia technique names for this. That's Kabbalat Hashemot, the tradition of the names. That this is a technique to, or to work with a specific name, like the name 72 or the name of tetragram. But some of the terms are, I also noticed that in my discussions with scholars or someone interested in Abulafia, that if I speak about kfitza, for example, I will explain what is kfitza, jumping, or dilug, jumping. It literally means jumping, but it means something else. There is also this, if someone is also not into the a little bit understanding of practice and Jewish ritual, it's like I see that there is no attachment to like in-depth understanding of in relation to the Jewish sources and how actually it can be applied everywhere. And in every text, of course, Abulafia is operating in texts in terms related to Jewish literature mainly, and Hebrew language, Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language. But still, it's just, in my opinion, better to go through those terms a bit and give you examples which are a bit, some of them are inspired by Abulafia. I will show you one that actually I find it a really good example of one of those terms, how they are applied. But I don't think that this is what Abulafia had. I don't recall right now, but I'm sure that this is part of the Jewish tradition. And it's also, as I said, connected to the name 72, which will dominate our meeting today. So this is one example. So we have Tzeruf, Kfitza, Diluk, Temura, and Gematria. And I would like to go right now to further to explore those terms. So Tzeruf, Letzaref, this root, Tzaraf, has a homophonic, which means similarly sounding root, saraf, lisrof, to burn through, like seraphim, like lisrof, mashehu, lisrof mashehu, is just to burn something. So tzeruf, it's with tzade instead of in saraf you have a different letter. You just feel that there is some connotation. This is a digression that is not on a slide. Hebrew language has a lot of those kind of tricks and allusions to each other in the roots in a language that similarly sounding words also show connotation in the meaning, and you have quite a lot of that. And sometimes also the roots can mean something else and mean contradictory things. Just to give you an example out of the blue, Kadosh means holy. usually translated like this. I am very much against this translation, and it's actually corroborated by Rashi. Rashi many times, main commentator of Torah, he many times claims that holy is not exactly, of course, okay, he's not explaining it, not translated to another language, but he's explaining that kadosh means separated. It's a little bit like the dynamics of Latin sacer, which means separated, and sanctus. So there is this tendency in translations of the word kadosh, to holy one, but I think it's really diluting the very precise meanings in Hebrew. And again, one other digression, the propagator of not translating kadosh as holy, but to something that is separated, that is enclosed and very specific, unified in the quality, in opposition to something that is not kadosh, that is outside. Such a propagator was Oskar Gorberg. I sent you actually his book, mainly huge exposure on gematria in a Torah, just to give you additional, if you want, additional lecture, because there is a foreword on gematria, another topic that we'll talk today briefly, that explains also in depth what gematria is. I think in a little bit different aspect that is also known in the common academic literature. But regarding Tzeruth, the source of it is in several places in the Torah, but I picked up one from the Psalms, the Tehillim 18 and verse 31. The meanings are different here. Like to join, to melt, like matzref, for example, is a melting pot. You want to do some
America is a melting pot.
Excuse me?
America, the United States are a melting pot.
Yeah, something like this. Yeah, but this is a little bit different. America, another digression is connected to Bavel. Le Bavel is to mix, to make it homogeneous. This is a little bit different idea. Yeah, but thank you for the comment, Alice. Tzeruf is a little bit different. It's a place when you put a raw material, it's crude material, and gold comes out, or the precious metal comes out. You remove the dregs, something that you don't want, and you use only the material, and you have a material as an outcome that is of precious value. And this is the whole concept, again, that we will talk about later in Abulafia's ideology, that he perceives, he's very anthropocentric. He thinks that we start with the body, we have a body at our disposal, but the body, when it's not operated with, with any discipline, with any technique, is just a very crude form. It's actually very, very raw material that is affected by many distractions, and it's no good, according to Abulafia in many statements, just to follow the bodily forms and the bodily faculties without any training. But if you put it into the melting pot, you can do with body many beautiful things. You can, for example, as he likes to put it, you can change your own blood into the ink to be part of the ink of the Holy Torah. This is like metaphor, of course. I'm just giving you the digression that this tzeruf, this concept of tzeruf, to melt, to burn through, to recombinate, and to permutate, is all the time in those in this polysemantic way present in Abulafia. To burn through, again, it's just to just like similarity to the root saraf, lisrof, to burn, but it's tzeruf. So this fragment I would like to just translate to you, because it's also quoted many times by Abulafia. האל תמים דרכו, אמרת השם צרופה, מגן הוא לכל החוסים בו. The way of the Hashem, like Kel, like the God, is perfect. His name, the speech, the word of Hashem, of tetragram, we have tetragram, tzrufa. It's being, again, What does it mean? The word of Hashem is melted, is burned through, is recombinating. The combination of letters is hinted at here. Uh, and this is interpretation of Abulafia, of course, because the translation in the Psalms you will find different. And the third part says Magen hu lechol hasimbo. It's a protection to everyone who is like taking refuge in it or just uh, longing for it. Just again, a little bit different meanings of the symbol. But Seruf is why is this so important term? Because the name of the technique of Abulafia is called also Chochmat HaTzeruf. He's self-named. He's calling it the wisdom of the, again, joining, melting, burning through, combinating and permutating. When he speaks about combinating, recombinating, permutating, it is about letter combinations, because he has in mind all the possibility of combining the letters of Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters, with each other, and also with the names of God, but also the whole idea to not to operate with the prayers only, with the sentences only, literal meaning, but just going deep into some sort of, I would call, infrastructure of the language, to decompose it and then recompose it in order to aim that the language can aim to the prophetic needs, to start those prophetic needs. We'll speak about it also in future session about this ideological aspect. But for now, let's focus that tzeruf means more or less those things here, and it's related to the technique of combining and operating on the letters in different transfigurations. One can also a little bit summarize. One can say that by recombinating the letters, one is melting through the one's mind by practicing those techniques, and rejoining those letters, rejoining those elements, give a rectified state of mind, the mind that is prophetic one. So I think the most important thing is the idea of this melting pot. Also, alchemy in a totally other realm of Jewish thought is has something to do with Chochmah Tziruf, not Chochmah Tziruf. Chochmah Tzrifa is also a term for a medieval term for alchemy. So it has something to do with this idea of transformation. I think this is the most important thing to state at this stage. Kfitza diluk. Kfitza means to jump, likfotz, and dilug is to skip, ledalek. So to jump and to associate, in this aspect, it's a technical term in Abulafia, just to associate freely significations and connotations between the words. Like as I gave you this example right now here, this is my own example. What happens when one applies kfitza and diluk. And I must digress here that this part, which I was comment upon right now, it happened to me exactly because I was just spontaneously, I was just really into the Abulafian topics, very much into that meditation. What does it mean? All those terms, and I happened to be reading back then the fragment of the Torah, and it can be said that really even the delving into the Abulafian way of thinking can change. I'm just giving you my own personal example, can change the mindset, because what happened to me, I just at that moment, it was several years ago, I just opened this part of the Torah, just wanted to read it, and instead of seeing the text which speaks about it's from Parasha Miketz, about beginning of redemption of Joseph in Egypt, that there is a dream of Pharaoh. Instead of seeing this whole text and reading literally the text of the Torah, I noticed that my mind just, for some reason, has tendency to see several words that just kind of trigger my attention. And I think this is the best example of Dilug. Without defining it through some theory, it just shown to me that some sort of the automatization, the tendency to see the text different, can be trained in a brain, in a mind. And what happened? I was reading this fragment here. So it's the fragment, as you can see here, is about the dream of the pharaoh that he was standing at the Nile River. Nile River in Hebrew is Haye Or. This is the term. And the whole concept of Haye Or, the Nile, is of course very important for Egypt itself, etc. And then again, this word Haye Or appears later. And then there is this word Vaikats, and he woke up. So what happened here, as a look, I just self-observed that, wow, why am I having this attention? And back then I didn't know that there is some connotation between these words. I noticed that higher has the numerical value. Again, I am a little bit moving forward ahead of. It's a numerical value, which means gematria, of 216. And then again, I see that higher repeats and 216, of course, the same, but Vaikats is also having this gematria of 216. And why was it important? Well, it's preludium to the technique of Haye Haolam Haba, because this number 216, please keep it in mind. This is something that is related exactly to the technique of Haye Haolam Haba, which is the technique related to the name 72. By the way, 72 multiplied by 3 is 216. So the name 72, as we will see, has something to do with this number. And the name 72 also appears in some way in a story of leaving the Egypt. And again, the whole concept of leaving Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim, for of course for Jews, for in Judaism, in Christianity also, it has this redemption, this kind of salvatory aspect, like leaving something that was not so good and being born again, going through, going out of some place that was oppressive into the liberation. So this whole connotation just appeared apparently in my mind back then, and I just noticed something that I didn't read in Abulafia. I haven't read it in Abulafia. I haven't read it in anywhere else. And apparently, this was a side effect of positive side effect of being into the mentality triggered by the Abulafia's texts. So this is a little bit of I decided to add this example because last time I was asked if there is some practice or interest in practice from my side in Abulafia. Well, as I said, even if I wouldn't like to have any practice, the practice appeared, because if someone delves into something, there is this proverb, one becomes one, yeah? You enter the water, you are a little bit surrounded by the water. The water starts to navigate your own movements. So the same is here. Your immersion into the topic can sometimes have those positive side effects of giving spontaneous better understanding. Okay, so this is Kfitza Diluk. Temura. Again, another example that actually it's being commented upon, but I also had this luck to have a nice teacher who, in my times of studying the topics of Hebrew and also studying the visions of Yecheskel, which we're talking about, vision of Ezekiel, the famous one in chapter 1 of Ezekiel. We were discussing the topic of 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 the river Chebar, Kfar, that is appearing there. And the vision of Yecheskel was being discussed. What does it actually mean? How he actually attained this vision? Abulafia doesn't explain this, but this is a good explanation. What is Temura? Temura means to recombine the elements of the letter within the words, like change the order in order to actually build up another word, which is yet another the automatization process. All what we learn here, this serves the automatization of the standard typical processes that are implemented into our mind by using literature in usually one way. Reading the text literally, you can read it by allusions, by some secrets, by symbolic meanings, by secret meanings, but still it's using the text in a quite typical linear way. What techniques of Abulafia do, they are decomposing this way, they are distorting a little bit, I would say, the literal way. They are not interested um, in literal practice and reading it in a way of explanatory. You are using the words as a building blocks, as a material. Again, this is inspired by Sefer Yetzirah. We'll speak about it again ahead a little bit in next slides. But now about Temura is the recombination of the letters within words. For example, in a simplest way, there are more other explanations what is Temura also, but Temura lehamir is change, yeah, is to exchange something for something. So I gave you an example here of Gematria 222 of the word that has this meaning, for example, kevar, and it's the fragment from the Yecheskel. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was, Yecheskel says, Ezekiel says, I was among the captives by the river Kevar. This is exactly how is it. It's being transliterated into the Kevar, but, and people, of course, comment, scholars comment, what is this Kevar? That maybe this is Euphrates or something else. It's not important for us. What is important that the word kfar means now, in this moment, and it can be interpreted that he actually gained a vision that was atemporal, that his mind, Yeheskel's mind, was taken away uh, by some circumstances, and he just was in the moment of vision. That was a moment, yes, like it was now. So this is the kfar, the river Chebar. That the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Well, I really am compelled towards this interpretation because it's not important for me to know which river he was meditating upon and what triggered his prophetic vision, Yecheskel's vision, is maybe a bit important, but the most important thing is here that there is deep meaning inside what you can do with this word and what actually is actually stemming from those associations. First of all, the puzzling gematria, the value of 222 is very interesting gematria because it's actually double times the gematria of Aleph. The word Aleph, the name of the first letter that is actually not pronounced. It's as it's said in Latin, acutus, the beginning of the breath, the preparation of the throat to say something. It can Aleph can get values like a, e, or u, but in itself, it's just this readiness to speak. So in itself, it belongs to language, but it's not part of the language. It's of course in Hebrew letters, it's treated as a consonant, but in itself, it's a silent consonant. So it's, of course, has a lot of connections with spirituality, that Aleph is as if uh, God's presence and not presence. Is also in some circles of Kabbalah, it's being called also one of the God's names in itself. Aleph, when we spell it outside out in its own name, it is A, which is Aleph, which is 1, Lamed is 30, and Pe is 80, which is 111. But twice Aleph is 222. And the beauty about it is that it builds up the words like birech, levarech, which is the basis for bracha, for blessing, rahav, which is like to ride on something, and Also Ravcha, which means your Lord. This is exactly your someone Rav, like rabbi. It's also, but in Rav it means someone superior to you. So Ravcha means superior over you. And the already mentioned word kfar. This is what you can get from those from recombining the order of those letters. I will digress upon all those meanings because for Abulafia they are very important, especially Rachav, to ride. He uses the word Rachav in connections to the word Merkava. In modern Hebrew, it means, of course, tank or chariot in the typical literature as translated, but also it's related and again as a self reference in Yecheskel, in Ezekiel, as Maaseh Merkava. The vision of Ezekiel is being called Maaseh Merkava, which again is translated as the the visions of the chariot. Maaseh means to act, something to do. So, but the meaning is here the visions of the chariot. But I think it's very much misleading because another meaning of Rahav is leharkiv. It means to recombine. Again, harkava in Hebrew it means to like put puzzles together, put elements together to build something higher. And it's again a little bit on a different meaning than tzeruf, like burning through in order to achieve something uh, of qualitative level much higher than the crude matter which you started with. But leharkiv is to combine elements together, which is again better translation to the potential technique that there are hints about it, that in times of prophets, ancient prophets, they were using similar things that Abulafia was using, but we cannot speak about this surely. It's just very far-fetched hypothesis. But Abulafia is hinting at this, that Rachav is the rider. Rochev is a rider on a horse of the body. He very much speaks about it. That mind is the Rochev, the one who is riding upon the crude matter of body. So, but this is the explanation of more or less what is Temura. You just change in simple ways, you just change the order of the words, and then you achieve different results, which is again the automatization, the keyword for today, the automatizations of the standard ways of how our mind operates in relation to language as a mother with which we operate with. Yeah. Gematria. So the gematria is mentioned. The lower part of the slides is an excerpt from Pirkei Avot, the sentences of the fathers. It's a part of Gemara, part of Talmud, and I like to really. I would like to refer to this fragment that is being mentioned here. That Rabbi Eliezer ben Chizma taught that the laws related to the birth offerings, which is called kinim, and the laws regarding the beginning of the nida menstruation, they are the very most important halachot, the parts of the Jewish law. And astronomy and gematria are desserts, like as it's called here, parperaot. Sorry, in Hebrew I just skipped one sentence below. But this is what is being said, that they are just additions. Well, this is also a trick, by the way. Most of the Talmudic commentaries say, yes, gematria is additional one. It's not something that it means the core of the Jewish thought. But in Talmud itself, there is this category of self-reference to what is important, what is not. It's called Lashon Sagid Nachor, which means literally the language of the blind that sees very lucidly. So in Talmud, there are many statements like about titles, about Shmuel HaAroch, the Shmuel that was very high, title of one of the sage, although it was known that he was not a very tall person. Or you are saying that something is a desert addition, to something, it might be that you are actually wanted to hide the true meaning and say that this is important, but this is very, very exclusive and very esoteric topic. And that's why you want to say that this is just addition, but you want to say actually from the other perspective, it's a very core, very important to understand the depths of Torah. However, you cannot teach, for example, children gematria. You cannot start with gematria. You start with the basic things, how to make brachot, how to say blessings, and so on and so forth. Therefore, those kind of puns and those kind of methods of hiding and explaining through hiding, saying that something is peripheral but actually is a core from another perspective. Those kind of methods are being used. In the article that I sent to you, which is the forward to the book of Oscar Goldberg, there is a whole explanation of this hypothesis that I proposed. And still, I do not have any feedback from my colleagues about if it's valid or not. But I like the idea that actually gematria is the core to understand many, many deep things in Torah. And I'm not alone in this assumption. But is gematria something that gives the basis of Judaism? I would say no, because by gematria you don't build a Jewish society, but you can build a elite of Jewish scholars by delving into gematric modes of understanding. So, giving this preliminary explanation how I think about gematria, it's a numerical value of the words, as already hinted at. The words have numerical value. And I gave you some examples from Abulafia. These are from Abulafia. So Abulafia has, of course, positive obsession on Mashiach, and also quite often speaks about the serpent. And serpent and Mashiach have the same gematria, 358. And again, here a very important thing to say, it's not that Mashiach, Messiah is the serpent and serpent is Messiah. Gematria doesn't indicate the connection between the words that mean the same. It indicates the connection that may mean something opposite, that there is some sort of relations between some terms, that there is some sort of maybe of different logical nature. It can be correlation, it can be cause and effect, as I said, opposition, but also some qualitative connection is there. So if we go through, and this is a topic not for today, this is a broad topic, the Jewish messianism, we can see that many of those so-called false messiahs in our history or any kind of other messiahs, they have something to do with the serpent all the time. But it doesn't mean necessarily that serpents are messiahs and vice versa, but there is some connection. And Satan, which is 359, just one bit more than 358, means that Satan is always the opposition towards any redemptive and also any evilish in some aspects elements in our reality, is just one digit, one value more than 358. And there is a very interesting, important rule in gematria that even if the value is different by one, there is some, it means that indicates that there is some connection. Why? Because in Hebrew there is no any natural particle, grammatical particle that is value with one. Aleph is one in Hebrew, and it doesn't serve any as a particle. However, bet is a particle. It means in. Babait, it means in the house. So bet is having value 2. It already changes the connotation. So value, for example, of the word mentioned already here, koach, is 28, and Hashem, and the tetragram is 26. So one can say be Hashem, within Hashem there is a koach, 28, 26 plus 2, 28. But for this you require this particle to be used. However, if there is a difference of one, it's also called the rule of im hakolel, that the word itself serves as a value in itself, so therefore it can be added or detracted. However, those are, and not for the purpose of our meeting today, those are not the uh, the most important aspects of the gematria hermeneutics and exegesis, because gematria is also used for exegesis. We are talking here about gematria in order to, again, de-automatize the mind. I repeat it all the time. It's at some point you start to read the text through the numbers. And there was one rabbi from Krakow, Rav Natan Spira, a long time after Abulafia in the 16th century, who was being said that he was like, he opened the Torah and for him everything was numbers. Like, just to use the language of vernacular, uh, of our contemporary experiences, like Neo in Matrix is seeing the numbers of the code. He doesn't see reality. He goes through it. He sees through it, and he sees the code itself, the mathematical, arithmetical code. So this is more or less what gematria serves as a technique to de-automatize the usual patterns of practitioner's mind. The examples below: lashon, which means the language, and tzeruf, already explained this combination, permutation to burning through, is also used in Abulafia many times, because he says language is the mother. It has to be burned through, therefore, and rectified. It has to be melted and changed into something else. So the language, Abulafia likes to say, we are in a chains of language. When we speak, we are thinking grammatically, we are thinking in sentences, we are thinking in a communicative mode. But this is just one superficial layer. However, tzeruf, having the same geometrical value, is indicating that you can do with language other things, which we'll see what he's doing in language in a few moments. And again, this gematria of 386 is also mentioned by Abulafia. Koach Mashiach is the power of Mashiach, which is 358 plus 28 gives you 386. And it can be also Koach Nachash, depending on where it will lead you. And another aspect is the Lashon HaKodesh, is Koach Mashiach HaKadosh. This is gematria from Abulafia, which is 795. But it also can be substituted Koach Nachash HaKadosh, which sounds quite heretical already. The power of the separated, unique serpent. And I will let myself here for digression. Probably everyone here is exploring different, in interest, different systems of different mysticism. When I read it about Koach Mashiach HaKadosh and Koach Nachash HaKadosh, as a possibility to have it as a relationship to the Lashon HaKodesh, why the unique Hebrew language, holy language, is so unique to attain the power of Mashiach, separated Mashiach, holy Mashiach, to use the more popular translation, but as I said, not correct. I immediately thought about Kundalini, the serpent in the Woodrow's exposure of Raja Yoga and Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. The whole concept of serpent as a spine, and actually that all those things are happening with our body through the techniques of yoga. Well, the parallels are so really they're compelling to be found here. I'm just bringing them here just for the curiosity that, and also for to share the awareness that I am aware of them. So, and not only me, many other people are just thinking about it, scholars, that the similarities are there, because Abulafia is so much anthropocentric. He's thinking about, we start with the body, and the same is in yoga systems, in any other systems that incorporate body and the body functions into the mystical path. They are not alienating the body, they incorporate the body. So just a digression, closing the digression right now. And again, Abulafia is saying that Ivrit, Hebrew language, another language, another name for Lashon HaKodesh, is unique because it's also Maseh Merkava. It's also this act of chariot, as it's popularly translated, but as I said, it's an act of recombination of elements, putting them together again. And any kind of Hebrew grammarian can agree with me that Hebrew has this very nice feature of uh, stemming from this free letter, usually three letter roots. You can do a lot of recombination within itself through those patterns of binyanim, as we know, through different ways of exploring the possibilities of changing the meanings. That actually is very much this permutative, recombinative language, which is very beautiful. Yeah. Another digression: Noam Chomsky, Jewish, of course, and I am setting aside his political views. I'm totally, yeah, very much setting aside what he thinks about, yeah, political views, because I don't like it. But um, as a founder of the very big school, grammatical idea of generative linguistics, yeah, it's most probably either subconsciously or through the cultural immersion is again inspired by Hebrew. Actually, a good question if Chomsky knows Hebrew, but probably yes. Uh, just a digression. Okay, let's jump. We are already around 1 hour. Would we like to have a break right now, or we move forward with the core? I'm putting into the vote, so maybe someone, if we want to have a break, we can have a break. But if we
I don't want. You can go
continue,
further.
I assume that maybe continue, and we will have a break. Just maybe raise a hand, maybe in 10-15 minutes. But I just want to move forward a bit to the topics, and again briefly about what is the recombination here. Sefer Yetzirah and Rav Elazar of Worms, which is Hasidei Ashkenaz, are the sources for Abulafia. The Book of Formation is the source of Abulafia. This circle here shows you the graphically that all the possibilities of combining each letter of 22 letters of Hebrew alphabet with another one, which you have in totality 462 possibilities, but they are duplications because you are repeating combinations twice. Yeah. So in order to get to what is the core of all the possibilities within the Hebrew language, you have to divide this number by 2, and you have the 231. And 231 is called the 231 gates uh, of possibilities of combinations of one letter with another letter. We are talking about two combinations. Much bigger, of course, possibilities are if you combine three. But Sefer Yetzirah speaks about it in order to say, in short, in order to say the whole truth, potentiality truth, which is within the potential of Hebrew language. You have to go through, and only if we are talking about joining two elements, you have to go through 231 gates. And Sefer Yetzirah, in this excerpt that I gave here below, is very beautifully giving this pun that the potentiality of truth is also ambiguous, because it can lead to something that is called delight, and also it can go to something that is called affliction. And the word affliction, plague in Hebrew, is nega, and oneg is a pleasure. It has the same letters. So as you can see, this slide shows a couple of things: combination, tzeruf, and also this temura, this recombination of the letter order, and also this self-reflection of the source of Abulafia technique that is speaking about it, that the wheel turns back and forth. This is a cipher for the mother. There is nothing in goodness higher than delight, and nothing in evil lower than affliction. Potentiality is there. What you will do with this, it's stemming from the combination. So the contextuality of the truth of Hebrew language, like a totality of the meanings, in this sense of the truth, can be applied in the context only, and then it gets a meaning. I will give you an example. from the brachot from Hebrew language. In the morning, there is this bracha, several blessings that every religious Jew is saying. One of those is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam matir asurim, which means matir asurim in the blessed be you, Hashem, God, our God, King of the world, the one who releases from the bondage, releases from something that is oppressive. And the idea is to say it in the morning because it's oppression from the chains of sleep, so to speak. But heretical movements in Jewish lore, they were translating it, Matir Asurim, it can also mean the one who permits what is forbidden. So you see the potentiality, the truth, the Hebrew is there, but you can translate it in different ways. And this is just a hint at the whole concept of recombination of the letters. And Abulafia also speaks, do it, the patterns that we will see further, do it in the order, do it in a pattern, don't do it chaotically. Because the whole concept is that what can serve of unifying the mind and clearing the mind and bringing it towards Hashem can also lead to destruction if it's neglected, if it's just chaotic, if there is no order, if there is randomness to the method. He's saying about the dangers of this practice a lot. So I'm just hinting it a little bit here by giving also this excerpt from Sefer Yetzirah and stating also that the ideas that inspired Abulafia are much older. However, he is the first one who speaks openly about using them in practice. Because Sefer Yetzirah is also speaking about cosmology. He's speaking about that the world is being built by the combination of the letters and so on and so forth. This is a topic that is outside of our program here. Rafael Azaf of Worms, he's also speaking about it, that this is about the Sefer Yetzirah speaks about how the world is created in a linguistic way, not in a material way, but the building blocks are the letters and the words, and the language is the building blocks. But Abulafia says, no, they were just hiding the true meaning. The true meaning is that this is a method how to get through the world to Hashem, to the God. And he's the first one who openly speaks about it. Abulafia's idea that it's much older, his own techniques are much older, can be just hypothesized. But I find them much probable that there are many, many hints that the previous generations, they were using those techniques that he was speaking openly in different forms, in different ways. But already in the Hasidei Ashkenaz, you have hints at this, and I'm just putting it very short, just not to digress too much in this topic. But Abulafia speaks openly, and this is what matters to us during our meeting right now. So there are preparatory steps in Abulafia. Abulafia speaks about putting his technique into the context of Jewish ritual. So he advises fasting, and as I said, today is a fast day, so another coincidence. Last week we had coincidence that it was 25th of Elul, the moment when Abulafia 706 years ago attempted to meet the Pope. And if I count well, no, 746 years ago, Abulafia, 1 week before, he wanted to meet the Pope. So it was a nice coincidence. Today is another nice coincidence. We speak about preparatory steps. He speaks about fasting also. That is good. And fasting doesn't mean also to be deprived of water all the time, but or eating, but it really cleanses from the typical actions that are typical for our life. Well, we eat and drink, and then therefore we are part of creation. By fasting, you are a little bit preparing your body to a little bit different activity, so to speak. And he also advises putting a tefillin and white garments, and sometimes talit, also this praying shawl. So there is a hint that because tefillin is not being worn during the night, usually there is a hint that the practice must be during the day. However, in Kabbalistic sources, also apart from Abulafia, there are mentions about different other practices, different other religious, meditatory or prayer types, that tefillin is also worn at night. Well, this is not a part of halacha, I would say, not a part of orthodoxy, but I am not surprised that there is such idea, because tefillin serves as some sort of apotropeion, some sort of protective mode. It's literally the boxes containing the parchments with the names of with the parts of the Torah that are surrounding the body of a man. So Abulafia advises this to do it, but in other places he doesn't speak about it so much. Of course, he speaks about preparing of the body, like washing, putting white garments, being in a solitude. You cannot do it in the open market, yeah? You have to be in a seclusion a bit to do it, to do things that we were show what he was doing. And one important thing, you don't have it in your slide what I sent because I added it last minute. I just forgot that this is important to mention. There are stages of these practices. First, you start with writing things. Abulafia says that you are working with the language, start with the alphabet, start with the Hebrew letters, write them down, write those things that you are practicing. Be accustomed with the techniques. The second stage is to pronounce them, to already take them by heart by using the speech. But the highest level, actually where the prophecy state is happening in thought. Also, those things that are externalized in writing, in pronouncing, at some point they are incorporated into silence and can happen in a thought itself. Again, the similarity to the stage of yoga, Raja Yoga, from asana, pranayama, and then through the further through yama, niyama, and also dharana to dhyana and samadhi, they are just very much compelling to be, I just felt compelled to mention them. But again, I'm saying them with this assumption of mutatis mutandis, the change of the comparison. We are not saying that this is the same, but it's just similar, because the whole concept is that at the end of the day, the practitioner, the mystic, is operating with one's mind and doesn't need the externalities. But the beginning is starting with something external. There are tools of development, progressing. In Hebrew, it's called michtav, miftah, the pronouncing to express things, and machshav. Machshava means a thought, but a machshav is like the Hebrew word machshev, it means computer. Uh, Machshava means thought, but machshav, the technical term in Abulafia, is operating in thought. And those preparatory, the specific letters and groupings of their permutations, this is exactly the result of Sefer Yetzirah. So when we translate this picture here of the possibilities of combinations with one of the methods of applying the how Aleph, here an example of a one table, Aleph with vowels is combined with letter Yud, the first letter of the name of Hashem. It has vowels of in the first row of O, then O-A with Kamatz, O-E with Tzere, O-I with Chirik, and Shuruk, O-U. And the pronunciation would be combined with the specific respiratory patterns and movements of the head. Like when speaking O, the movement is towards up to O. Why? Because it's on the upper side of the letter. So the first one would be O, yo, in the very prolonged statements of the respiratory and moving of the head at the same time. And then O, ya. And ya, the movement is because it's like horizontal and a little bit down. It is movement from right to left or from left to right. The techniques are actually changing sometimes, but the logic is there. Oh, yeah, and yeah is the movement like this and down because there is a dot on the kamas. And then the same with the oh, yeah, those two dots. In the in the next example is the tzer, which is the movement again horizontal between left and right. O E is going down of the head, and O U, these three dots in the diagonal, which is shuruk, kubus, sorry, is the movement forward and backward of the head. So the sitting position and the movement of the head, the respiration, and repetition, 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 repetition. Abulafia, here I wanted to stress it, is causing, Abulafia's technique is causing hyperactivation. It's not relaxation, it's hyperactivations. It's actually overstimulation of the mind that goes to some levels of the automatization, and then the effect happens. About the effects, we will speak during further meetings. I will hint it at in the next slide a bit, but this is the whole concept. The concept is not to relax mind and meditate on some ocean or something that is peaceful and then keep silence. On the contrary, it's a little bit movement. There is a position, fixed position, the body, sitting one, but there is a lot of moving into movements of the head. This is still preparatory stage because this is not the experience itself, and working with the names, with the here we have the working of the names of the letters of the names of God, but this is still preparatory. So actually, I would like to speak more about this, which is the technique that is very simple and with only with the name of Hashem, of God. But maybe we'll have this break right now. Maybe let's have it like 8 minutes, or maybe let's meet at 7:35, like 9 minutes. All right? Okay. So thank you so much. So let's stop for a moment here.
mit.
Marlies, we're starting in 3 minutes. So let's wait.
Was heißt das? Machzor Malé?
Zomale, the full cycle. Yeah, the full cycle of the. This is the rudimentary technique, but with the name of Hashem. I will speak about it soon. And Pnuot Rosh, the movements of the head.
Ja, das ist klar, ja.
So just a second, I will speak about it. Okay, so I think we can go back earlier. Let's wait for okay. Javier is also coming back, and Valerie and Francesco will briefly there.
I'm here, yeah, thank you.
All right, okay. Okay, great. So if everyone is ready, let's move on. Here is the technique that is a rudimentary technique, but very deep technique because it's operating with the name of Yudke Vavke, the holies of the holies, the most unique from the unique. And it's something that is exactly why I want to delve a little bit into that, into this one, because it doesn't require those big cycles, big seclusions. However, it's still, if someone wants to practice it, and again, I'm just a little bit setting aside the academic meaning of the practice, hinting at that it is bringing some connection, because as we know, the name of tetragram shouldn't be pronounced. There is this big taboo about it. Abulafia, being in accordance with the traditions, not to pronounce the name, still wants to pronounce it and be connected to the name, exactly by decomposing the name to the consonants and decomposing to the vowels. Hebrew vowels, there are 5 main vowels mentioned already a bit. There are, of course, more, but five are, as Abulafia likes to call them, the five natural vowels, which is their phonetic value is O, A, E, I, U. Whole topic can be said about how Abulafia is talking about that every child has it already in mind, but the process of acculturation brings us towards those vowels, but the vowels are already there in the first pronunciation, in the first sounds the child um, coming out of the womb of mother is already using. Of course, without any technique at that stage, but the potential for the language and potential for connection and reconnection with the creator is already there. The first shout, the first sound that the child is uttering from the throat is already having some aspects of the creational name of tetragram. The most beautiful exposure, poetic but very deep, about how and what is the connection of the Yud Ke Vav Ke with the vowels that are usually applied there, was provided by famous, already late, unfortunately. He passed away of the brain cancer, by the way. Uh, Kabbalist scholar, Shalom Psik. He wrote beautiful books about Kabbalah, and he was one of those who didn't so much want to hide that he was also, as a Jew, also truly interested in the practice. And he was saying that Yud Ke Vav Ke is a sound of someone who is falling, is part of creation, falling down, and there is a huge distress, despair. At the same time, there is this calling for being uplifted, this sound of someone is falling from the height to the bottom. But also, it can be translated that is uplift from the lowest part of being immersed in the creation towards the highest, which is the name itself, going to the source. So I'm just digressing here a little bit, that because I want to stress that we are talking about, again, something holy, but something unique. The name of Hashem cannot be treated lightly, I would say, saying it as a Jew. But as a scholar, I want to just present you the one of the techniques that is very simple but very deep. The movements are like this, that you have the letter, the consonant Yud. You start with the first, but you put the Yud through the chain of all the vowels. So the movement would be like yo and going up because it's holam, it's up. And it's with the closed eyes, the visualization of the letter Yud together with the movement of going up, as if to the extreme of the what does it mean to put the consonant Yud to the topmost elements of creation. Then the horizontal element of patach. Here we have the vowel patach, not kamats, but patach. Kamats would be with dash and dot, but here is a patach. The movement is yeah, and the pronunciation like this. I'm saying it very, very short because I'm not practicing right now, but I'm just pronouncing it as an explanation. It would be much more prolonged and on the whole depth of the breath. The pronunciation is on the not really on the breathing out, but the cycle ends with the one breath out and the movement of the head like this. Yeah, and then breathing in. The next with just Sarah, which is also horizontal, but from the other side, from the right to left. Yeah. And then Hirik is below, usually in the written form, but it's the movement, it's indicated, it's hinting at the movement down. So it's E. And as mentioned already, the kubuts, those three diagonal dots, are the movements forward with the head and backward, U. And this is as if placing the name, the first consonant of the name, into all dimensions of the nadir zenith, on all sides of the world. I forgot to mention that Abulafia says that the practitioner should be positioned towards the east. So therefore, you have this notion that one is a part of of the the creation of the universe, but also on the dimensions of the world, 6 dimensions of the world. There are more of those dimensions. There's temporality and also morality, good and evil, and uh, future and past. But this is not something that we will mention right now. And um, the same is being repeated with letter he, with vav, and he. And this is the one full cycle of as if immersion inside, being immersed and immersion inside of the name of tetragram through the method of movements of the head and breathing in, breathing out. Ideally, at some point, it's happening in head, in mind, but the movements are also not consciously so much uh, noticed, they are just accustomed to. And this can be repeated many, many times. What I know, and this is not directly in Abulafia mentioned, but what I know from one practitioner advised is to say it to put this whole cycle at least 4 times, because it's like 4 times 4 letters. And then the repetition can lead to the cycle of 8, and then repetition to have it 16, and getting also further to 32. The repetition should be like fourfold all the time. So depending on the time possibilities, the ethics are at sometimes being mentioned as if there is some sort of a lighting sphere around being naturally imagined. I just think that this is quite personal, but the whole idea is actually to, on top of the typical Jewish prayers, to have such a meditative practice, which is leading to the hyperactivation and already preparatory stage, but still already it is a meditation, and it is operation with the name of tetragram. Not as complicated and not as prolonged like the one that we will not talk about today from Or HaSehel, which I mentioned already. The hint was being given here on this slide. When you put all the letters of the Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke with the combination of the with the all of the letters of Hebrew alphabet, which can take weeks to complete the whole cycle with the or several hours for sure in one cycle. But having in mind that this is to be repeated and repeated, and some sort of a set pattern of the time should be given, and also, well, we're still a part of the creation, so the needs for the sleep and breaking the fast eating and also other needs of the existence should be taken in consideration. So the cycle can take weeks to fully accomplish it. But this is something much simpler, yet by no means less deep. Okay, so still preparatory steps, as I mentioned here, is a little bit maybe not correct, because the fourth step, what we are talking about, is exactly what I already hinted at here. The fourth step, mental imaginary of letters and human forms. At some point, the one who is speaking should be imagined as externalized. So at some point, the Abulafia says, imagine that you are not in your body, but imagine that you are standing in front of you or sitting in front of you, and the vision of in front of you of one is actually doing those practices. It's actually a very interesting technique, because it puts a lot of focus, a lot of stress on mind, but then by self-disciplining, one is dissociating by technique, not by spontaneity. It's like out of body experience, but being advised to perform, to be taught. Like practicing makes perfection. And then the letters and those imaginations that are also being uh, placed in the mind, not in the written form, not by looking at them, not by chanting them. The chanting, the combination, the breathing, the movement of the head is still happening, but it's happening as if without focus. The focus is on this imagined bodily form outside, but under closed eyes, the human form is speaking from the outside. Well, this is again hinting at the topic of autoscopy, the vision of the self that is speaking, which we are going to talk later. But Abulafia also mentions, but this is important to hint at here at this moment. Um, there are some words like imaginative faculty and the screen of the mind that I placed here that are typical Abulafian terms. Again, he's using those terminology from Rambam, from Moreh Nevuchim, imaginative faculty. It sounds very Aristotelian, and it is very Aristotelian because this is how Maimonides also put it, and Abulafia also put it. And the effect is being hinted in the last book. It's being hinted in many places, but the excerpt I chose is also to be found in the sources online, and the most kind of to the point excerpt is from Imre Scheffer, the last book of Abulafia known, and I will just read it out. And they, the letters with their forms, are called the clear mirror. And the term clear mirror is also apparent in is also known in Zohar. It's in Aramaic Spaklaria Meira, and it's being said that Moshe on Sinai he was looking at everything with contact with God through the clear mirror, Spaklaria Meira. However, all the other prophets can see only through the lens that is called, or through the speculum, the mirror that is called Speclaria Shchorim, which is like the black mirror, which is not so much refined, but there is also always something destructive, not destructive, destructive. Distraction is being there. Therefore, the effects that through this decomposition, through those techniques, one can achieve some messages, which is hinted at the end of this quote. They can not be fully believed in, which was not the case of the ideal prophet, which was apparently by tradition Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu. And Abulafia claims that by those techniques, if someone is impeccably doing it, he mentions in many years can pass towards this stage, and then the effect is that I will go back to the quotes. All the forms having brightness and strong are included in them, and one who gazes at them in their forms will discover their secrets and speak to them, and they will speak to him. But the effect of the imagination starts to have its autonomous mind. And here again, I would like to speak about the dangers that Abulafia speaks many times about it, that when one is playing with the mind in such a hyperactive mode, by dividing it into two, that there is a visionary that becomes autonomous and vision, and vice versa. The fluctuation of the attention and the consciousness has to be all the time kept in unity. Otherwise, in our terms of neurocognitive science or neuropsychiatry, it leads to split. It leads to mental dysfunction. I would say even schizophrenic stages. So Abulafia speaks about those dangers all the time. But it's like self-controlled when it's properly done, as aimed by Abulafia, self-controlled practice on a verge, on a very radical, refined mode of very put to the limits capabilities of the mind. I would paraphrase like that. And then I highlighted what Abulafia also says as one of the effects, and they are like an image in which a man sees all his forms standing in front of him. And then he will be able to see all the general and specific things, which is like the results. Like I would say he's uploading his attention to the most highest refined actualization of the capabilities of the mind in their potentiality towards actualization. And then from there, this source can download some messages towards the creation again. So here again, we have this hint how Abulafia was actually operating in his aim, both as a mystic, someone who is practicing in a secluded stages. He's not within the society, but he says often that prophet is the one who comes back to the people, and he spreads the messages. So there is this constant, seemingly aporia, like this not matching elements that are the ones on one hand, Abulafia, as we know from the previous meeting, was active, was propagating his technique, was also thinking about the political aspect of messianism. At the same time, he was stressing that in order to be politically active, the true messiah, outside, one has to be inside rectified. And yeah, this dynamics of being in the world and outside of the world is being highlighted and stressed all the time by Abulafia. He doesn't want to leave, like leave the world and that's it, and escape the world. This is not escapistic practice. This is a practice of going to the source and then going back and nourishing those who are not on the same stage as the prophet, as the mystic, as the Kabbalist. This is how I would encapsulate the message here. So I mentioned that Chochmat HaTzeruf is the name. It's to recap a bit, technique of breath, body movements, letter combinations, incantations performed in prolonged systematic sequences. Here we have an excerpt from one of the editions of Haye Haolam Haba, which is another technique which I would like to speak about. And all of those techniques have a little bit accent on something different. So here we are going to talk right now about how to actually write in circles and meditate on circles. I will not speak about it specifically right now. It's also a quite elaborate topic, but this what we can see here, I will jump a little bit, is the same as here, as here, as here, which I would like to speak more analytically, and then we might have understanding more why he wanted also to meditate upon circles. This is an excerpt from the manuscript of Haye Haolam Haba, and those sequences are around 100 pages like this that are in circles, which I will try to explain why. So, Tzeruf Atiyot and the technique of Haye Haolam Haba, when you look at those circles, well, one can hardly understand what is it going about, why, and how to use it. But when we go back and start from the rudiments, we will try to have some understanding what is it about with the technique mentioned in the book Haye Haolam Haba, the life of the world to come. I'm just giving you examples of those different combinations. This is another example here when you have the combinations of the letters double he and yud, and instead of vav you have aleph, and all the combinations going like this, and all the combinations going like this, and you have those mentions of those vowels, and those charts are being sequenced as being shown in the manuscript as the sequences to be performed. So the techniques are varied. The techniques are many. Here we have also Aleph, He, Yud, He on the right side. Then you have the name of Hashem, and then again Aleph, He, Vav, He, and then Yud, He, Vav, and Yud, He, and so on and so forth. You have all those combinations, like as if to immerse, to be part of the meditation on the name and pronouncing the name, but in different configurations. So the methods are many. Okay, so beginning of everything in Judaism and also beginning of everything in Abulafia is in the Torah. That's a good thing. When we are confused, let's go back and we can see the beginning of all this technique. The name 72 is stemming from very ancient tradition and as ancient as Torah, because it's stemming from those three peculiar verses when the people of Israel are already got out from Egypt, but they are still before crossing the Yam Suf, which is being translated totally wrong as the Red Sea. The better translation is, but it's still a false translation, is the Yam Suf, like the Sea of Reeds, because apparently reeds were there. But the only translation that I can accept is the Yam Sof, which means the water of the end. And going through the water of the end, if one calls oneself Ivri, the one who passed through, lehavir means to go through, is the quality that Abulafia also stresses. Ivri is someone who goes through the limits and goes through the temporality of the waters of the end. He is infinite. He is emulating the infinite creator by doing infinite things with his help. So we are talking about whole nation, whole just emerging Am Israel that is going through the finity towards infinity, being still part of creation, which is paradoxical. And the beauty of this is these three verses, each of them contain 72 letters. There is no such a situation in Torah appearing in any other place. And those three verses are consecutive, and they speak also about redemptive action. Yes, the angel of God went before the camp, and then the pillar of cloud and the fire, and it came separated between the Egypt and Israel. Egypt is, to put it very, for the sake of the clarity and being crisp, symbol of materiality, of the basic form, of the food, beginning, the matter. And Israel is the movement out of it, what to do with it. You have to go through the finity and go through the waters of the end to be similar to the creator. So you have those three verses, and what is happening here? The tradition already explained by Rashi. Rashi is in commentary to these passages. He says that these three verses are the name 72. Why is it called 72? 72 triplets. Because one takes the first letter, which is Vav from the first, takes the last from the second verse, which is He, from the word Laila, the night, and then takes the first from the third verse, which is Vav. So then you have the combination Vav, He, Vav. Then you do it the same operation with the second one. The second letter from the first is Yud. Then the last but one is Lamed from Laila. And again, the second from the verse 21 is Yud. So you have Yo, La, Yo. Why I'm saying Va, He, Va, and Yo, La, Yo? Because there is this concept of natural consonants. Yud is Yod. It has its natural consonant is Yo, because the name of the Yud is Yod, Yud, Yod. So which is Cholam, which is O. Vav, natural consonant is A, which is Patach. Why? Because the name of the letter is Vav. So Va is the beginning. So you pronounce it Va, and He has a tzere. So Va, He, Va. Yo, La, Yo. Then you have Samer, Sa, Yo, Te, and etc. etc. Therefore, you know how to pronounce it. Otherwise, you just have the consonants without knowing how to pronounce it. This is how is it with consonants. You achieve such a rebuilding of those things. Those verses are exactly represented here. So we have this deconstruction in order to construct something else. You have those 72 elements. By the way, geometrically speaking, as I mentioned here, We are talking about potential of Egypt. One can appreciate maybe right now again, the pharaoh is dreaming about this because together those three verses are 216, and this is like Nile River. The basic mother is having all this potentiality because Egypt is Nile River and Nile River is Egypt. This is Hayeor, the potentiality of 216. And it's also mentioning about the hint of Vaikats. It will be awakened. What to do with this primordial mother? You have to awaken it. So Abulafia is hinting at this, that, but it's in my own words. What you do with this, you can do like this. You can stay in Egypt and be still within the Nile, within the finity, within the materiality, but you can do also this. And this is only consonants. But this 216, by the way, is also gematria of Gevura, which means a stringent form. Also, the aspect, then one of the Sephira, by the way, but it's another topic. But it's also, by the way, this is also gematria of my name, Arye. And at the same time, it's divided into threefold measures of 72, which is Chesed. The opposition of Gevura is Chesed, but only 3 times Chesed is Gevura. Gevura, element of stringency, of the form, of putting something in the strict formulations, having also this fluidity of the Chesed, which is like, okay, we embrace it with heart, we are good. Gevura is strict, we judge, but Chesed is here element of this kind of, I would say, the Inhalt in German, which is the something that is inside. The Gevura is giving the forms, but inside the content is the Chesed. This is also one of the nicest interpretations for the idea that too much Chesed, like if you are too much heart, whatever, giving, and 3 times is already too much, is giving a need for stringency. The overflow can happen. On the other hand, when you forget about dividing the Gevura, if you divide the stringencies of forms, you start to see that there is insight, there is a fluidity of heart warminess, of seeing something beyond the strict rules of the law, which is also seeing that one opposites can also be unified into one. It is the fluidity of the aspects. Here you have it with the consonants, with the vowels. So you know how to pronounce it. And this is what Abulafia says here. You should start with the same idea like we saw here in this slide. You use the breaths and use the movements of the head. So va is, but here is because it's kamat or it can be patach. It all depends. It can be it has to be the value of a. But in case of kamat, if the kamat is applied, if patach is applied, it doesn't matter so much. What it matters is the attention. So the variations of those techniques can be the variants of this technique can be still applied, because I want to stress again for the second time during our meeting today that this is not magical practice. It's not fixation that some result will happen if you just go like this. You can have variants. The idea has to be the driving force. So if we apply the kamats, then the movement of the head would be like this with the movement down, because there is this dot in the kamats graphic sign of the vowel a. A, which is kamat, is a little bit different than patach, but for the purposes of this practice, it's the same. It's a. It's prolonged by the breath, and at any time it doesn't have to be shortened. So actually here in this chart, you can see that everywhere the kamat is being applied, but it can also be patach. So the expression would be like this. I am giving example from the first 4. Sephardically, I would say wa he wa, I would say. But Ashkenazically or whatever is just harsher a little bit, more less softer. It would be va he va. And va he va would be this movement like va, then Again, hey. Again, va. And this is the first triplet on the long breaths. So it's long. Then yo, la, and yo again. And sa, yo, and te. And so on and so forth. And this cycle, of course, very much long. I once calculated if you apply more or less, let's say, for the breath in and breath out with the long patterns around, let's say, 9 to 10 seconds for breathing out, then you have 20 seconds of breathe out with a little bit pause for just recuperation from this stringency of the breaths. Then you have multiplied this by 72 not 72. In one triplet, you have actually around 1 minute. So you have for the whole cycle is more than 1 hour, and you have to add a little bit of idle time. And Abulafia stresses, don't make the pauses, don't make redundant breaths. Practice that you can only make pause after finishing whole row. So whole row is here comprising of 8 of those sequences. 8 multiplied by 3 of each of them. And then you say, if you want, you can have a pause, like have a idle breathing out and breathing out. And that's it, but not more. Why? Because it's just a little bit getting out of the practice. The ideal is to do it all the time within the practice. So it can take 1.5 hours or even more, I would say, to combine this technique. And it's immersion, as I said in this context, it's immersion within the whole redemptive context. One starts with the literal meanings, that it is getting out of the Egypt. Then it's getting out of your inner Egypt, of the inner crude forms. It's connection, reconnection with the creator that is immersed within the world. And here I am again hinting at something that will be further, the presence of the idea of the God being drowned within the world, which is in philosophical terms called immanency. Like transcendent God is outside, but how the world exists is because of the God being actually being inside of the creation in every aspect of creation by the immanent aspect, which is hinted at the name of Elohim, but we'll speak about it later on other stages when we'll speak about pantheism of Spinoza and the roots of pantheism of Spinoza that have something to do with Abulafia. We are exactly in 2 hours, but I think I'm sorry that I just because of the problems at the beginning and also I don't always assess how to correctly assess the time. So if you are okay, I have time for if you have questions, or we can move them forwards. What I can only say that Aryeh Kaplan was a rabbi, but he applied the last one mentioned here in bibliography. He was a rabbi, but he was actually applying quite nice academic routine and discipline into his books. And I cannot be praising more and more his book, Meditation and Kabbalah, one of his triptych, Meditation and the Bible, Meditation and Kabbalah, and Jewish meditation. But for me, the best is Meditation and Kabbalah. It's just so beautiful book. Such a beautiful book. There are sources, quotations, everything is there. So if someone wants to read in depth things that we couldn't put here, or we just for the sake of the organizational aspects of this course, of these meetings, we didn't put it. Meditation on Kabbalah, I advise it. I put here links, and actually, the funny stuff is that everyone knows about those pages. They are somewhere in the Czech Republic sites. And I must say, yes, there is a problem with copyrights about it because I don't think there is any consent that books are there, but books are there. So there is a Hebrew grimoire and .cz with Hebrew texts and many texts in English, and you can find books there. I just decided that it will, if you don't have those books, you can just find the copies there. I think most of the people who are using those places, like every scholar is saying, yes, of course, we use only the sources that are there, but everyone is using libgen, which is the reality. But for private users, I wouldn't say that this is something of piracy, but it's up to you. I'm just giving you because you can make a choice. You can also, all of those books I have in original bought by myself, but for the just sharing with someone who wants them earlier, please do so. But it's again, I'm not any author of those sites, so I didn't upload them. All right. Maybe you have questions.
Did you practice this all?
No, I would have to live different life.
Ähnlich.
I practice when I am feeling that I am okay with practicing. I practice this because this is really giving a lot of insightful situations. And right now we are in Yamim Noraim, in the between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Usually in high holidays, I like to practice those things, but not always. And I think for the Jew, it would be like going to the mikvah. For a non-Jew, if someone wants to be close to the Lord, also one has to assess what to do in order to be feeling that it doesn't lead to some problematic things. As everything, every tool which is operating with the mind, it requires cautiousness. Because
Ähnlich, Savla
I am
Noctis.
against, I am against the tourists, New Age tourism in mystics, whatever. Like today you are a shaman, tomorrow you are a neo-pagan, then you are doing something else, and then you are going to Kabbalah. I really saw a lot of, I was studying studies of religions, and I was studying also different sects, whatever. I am a, what is called Religionswissenschaftler in German, graduate student of religion. So I saw also people in huge distress when they were having too much jumping from one tradition to another, and it ended up in the psychiatry department. So just to say to you, I would have to live different life in order to practice this fully, because it requires seclusion, not social life so much. And I know that there are such groups in Israel and probably in America. I don't know them by person, but I've heard about them, and I think it's up to everyone to choose the path. But some of the practices are available. I think this one is really safe. This is short, and those.
It takes a lot of time.
Yes, exactly. You have to be living a different life. It's like going to the monastery of, you have to have a. You don't have. You cannot be part of the world, I would say, in many aspects.
Yeah.
Or you have to be a strong personality of Abulafia. So. We have further questions, or you can ask me later. You have my phone and WhatsApp. You can ask me if you want about sources, about places, about your own thoughts about,
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you liked it. You can also send me always a feedback. If you didn't like, send the feedback even more so. And if you didn't like it at all, even more so, you are obliged to send the feedback if you just want to build it together. Next time we will speak further about some Ora Sechal and also about the contextual stuff of theory and some Rambam and Maimonides and anything that you actually want. If you at this stage want to modify something in the plan, please tell me. If you want to hear more about it, if you want to talk about more gematria, about anything else, yeah. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you for a little bit prolonging, and yeah, till we see each other in 2 weeks, Bezat Hashem, hopefully, because next week is Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
If I am alive after Yom Kippur, after presenting those dangerous things, yeah, hopefully, yes. All right. I wish you all the best in your new year.
Thank you. Same to you.
5786, and good being written and sealed in the good year. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.